Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the spring edition of the Risk and Assurance Committee. It's also the last committee meeting of the triennium, and I did want to just pause and say something that's not usually heard in local government circles, which is thank you. So I wanted to thank the members of the committee. It's a hard task that you do working in this sector. It's a pretty tough sector. So I really appreciate the efforts you've put in over the last period of the triennium. I hope that we'll see each other again, but at the end of the day, that's entirely dependent on the mayor and chief executive in the next training. But I did want to really thank you. I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank the staff who support the committee, Graham and the rest of the team. Again, I recognise and acknowledge, having spent, I think this is my 31st year in local governance, what a tough job it is and what a tough sector it is to work in. But I've always been hugely impressed, not just with the elected members, but also the members, the members of management as well. You folks work in a sector where public service is critically important, and I really respect and admire that. So really appreciate the efforts you've made in the time that we've worked together. Thank you. Okay, warm welcome to Bruno from Deloitte. Bruno, we look forward to hearing from you very shortly. We'll just quickly work through some housekeeping matters. We've got no apologies. We've got no late items unless anyone wants to raise anything. No. In terms of conflicts of interest, has anyone got any interest that they want to declare in relation to this particular set of items? I just want to note one thing. I think it's reasonably indirect, but you all know that I chair CoLab. One of the divisions of CoLab is RATA, which provides transport data. RATA is mentioned, I think, once in the road evaluation report, so I simply note that for what it's worth. Let's turn now to confirmation of the minutes from last time. Does anyone have any questions, comments, edits before we look to confirm those minutes? All good. On that basis, then I'll move that the minutes be approved, and that'll be seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Okay, Bruno, come forward. Let's talk now about the audit of the 2024-25 annual report. Maybe a couple of observations just to set the context for this. I appreciate we're in an election year, and therefore the audit really has been brought forward 3-4 weeks, Brendan. And so in addition to the work that you and your team are doing, no doubt, on waters, you've got this, and you're probably running around like a one-arm paper hanger. So I want to acknowledge the time pressures that you're working under, and thank you and your team for the work. I know that Bruno's team's also been working hard as well. So I just wanted to reflect that from a contextual perspective. Brendan, is there anything in particular you want to draw to our attention before you lead us through the discussion with the auditors?
No, not really. I mean, so we circulated, I think it was Thursday last week, the draft report from Bruno and his team. So he's going to go through that. So I won't steal his thunder on any of that. And I guess nothing else. Yeah, the end report document is coming along. There's just a few little last minute tweaks we want to get done before we send it out. So the plan is to get it out to you hopefully by this Thursday. So you'll have it for a week before the meeting that we're now scheduled for next week.
And I know you guys are talking, I think, on a daily basis, because I've had the benefit of a couple of conversations with Bruno, for which I'm really grateful. How do you feel about October the 9th?
Yep, I'm pretty confident. I'm hoping Bruno's pretty confident too. And when we talked earlier this morning, it sounded like he was.
Okay.
I'm hoping nothing's changed the last half hour while I was in a different meeting. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Is there anything you want to add before we turn over to Bruno to talk us through?
No, I'll leave it. Then I'm happy to answer questions about anything.
Great, okay. Bruno, welcome. Thanks for your work. And again, you're subject to the time constraints as everyone else. So I appreciate the efforts that you and your team are making. Why don't we leave you to talk us through the key issues that you want to draw out, recognizing that your report so far is obviously draft.
Right. Thank you, Peter. So yeah, I'll probably kick off and say thanks to Graham and Brendan for their support. I mean, it's we are pushing to get there. There are a couple of areas that we're a bit behind on. I think just to touch on those, the road evaluation is one, and I'd also lay some of that on Aon. They haven't delivered according to the timetable. I think you have a draft of their report in your pack. Speaking to Brendan this morning, we're up to version 4, and hoping that's the last one and we can finalise that today or tomorrow. The other thing is the annual report. We did receive that towards the back of last week. As Brendan said, a number of areas there that still have to be tidied up, and we are working through it. And then there's just a couple of other areas where we're just back and forth on a couple of queries. So to echo Brendan's comments, I'm confident we can make Thursday next week. We will keep pushing. I will provide an update to Graham and Tanya probably by Thursday and flag if there are any issues at that stage. Going through the report, obviously we can't clear on all the items, but some of the risk areas that we haven't completed, we can comment on now. And I'll take our report as the draft report is read, so I won't spend too much time, but obviously the valuation of assets we're still working through. The management override of controls, which is one of the significant risks. We're still working on the journal entries, but probably other areas that we have worked through, we haven't picked up any issues. Revenue recognition is one of the big areas that we have finished our work on. We're comfortable that there were no issues there. Statement of service performance, obviously still working through as we work through the annual report. ESG and climate change was fine, no issues. The OAG focus areas, there's a couple of, as always, we find in council, there's tidy up areas on sensitive expenditure and just around timing of expenses. And I think a couple of expenses that just need to be careful that they look pretty high, but again, pretty usual for councils. One of the big areas just to draw attention to there was with the Waikato Waters Limited entity. All councils are required to disclose the progress with their water entity, and there will be an emphasis of that paragraph in the audit opinion, just drawing attention to that. Obviously, from your perspective, there won't be numbers in there yet because you're only going for July 27th, so it'll be explaining what it is and that you don't have the detail of the numbers yet, but probably next year there will be numbers attached to that. But yeah, we're comfortable with that, and I think we can pass on some wording to Brendan that what we've seen by the council, so it kind of lift and shift. Yeah, so that's really the key areas. There were a couple of repeat management letter points which I won't go through, but there were just 2 new ones that I just mentioned. One more importantly is just the loan with Kiwi House. We're still carrying that as fully recoverable, but I did notice that the numbers for the Kiwi House visitors and that are starting to drop off their targets. So it's just an area to keep an eye on whether you need to provide against that and just keep assessing the recoverability of that loan. And the other area is just there was a couple of areas identified when we were looking at our cut-off testing liabilities, just the minor thing. And then I understand just with everything that's going on and the pressures, sometimes the disciplines around these things fall off. Probably a good time to say that we are behind, but I thought it was worth mentioning that you have a very small finance team at Ōtorohanga. I have been involved in many council boards across the country, and fortunately you probably have the smallest finance team. So you know, a lot of things lie with Brendan because of the size of the team. And it does become a little bit of a bottleneck in the audit. And I feel, Brendan, I was saying to him this morning, where we want to watch under down the road. Our audit team will go into 7 or 8 different people with their queries with Ōtorohanga or rest of Brendan. So not only does every stage of what's going on in orders, but it's also got everyone on the team coming to him for information. So we do land up with some delays because of that. But we are, I think historically we've always got there in the end, and so confident we'll work towards Thursday. So happy to take any questions and audits to date at this point.
Thanks, Bruno. I appreciate your candor, particularly on the capacity issue, and not only you and I, but also the chief executive and I had a conversation. We're going to have a conversation with the audit committee when we get into the workshop stage, which I think will be directed to that kind of conversation. So I appreciate your raising that point. Do any colleagues have any questions that they want to raise about the draft at this stage?
Money for questions, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Bruno, just a question on page 23 on developments and financial reporting, and it's talking about new accounting standards coming in. And so my question there is, like, why new standards? Has there been a problem? It seems like we're in this phase where everything's going well. Then does shit, for argument's sake, we'll just bring in a few new standards to make it more challenging. Can you answer that, please?
Yeah. So yeah, man, I totally hear you and I feel your pain, and it's totally out of our control. The international standard setters keep pushing out standards and interpretations of standards. And I look back to when I started quitting, which is about 30 years ago, to where we are now. The auditing and accounting standards have probably doubled or tripled in size, so that they keep shifting the goalposts and making it harder. And to be blunt, my personal opinion is some of these changes because the accounting standards don't add additional value, just complexity, which make it harder for the average user to understand what's going on with the accounts. I think one of the things that you'll see coming is this putting leases on the balance sheet, which I totally disagree with. Where you have, if you have an operating lease, applies just an expense through your income statement. Now you have to put an asset for the item that you lease, a liability for your full lease payments of the lease. And when you've got a 20-year lease for property, for example, I'm not sure that adds that much value. And especially when you have an asset and liability that over time don't match up. But these are the rules that are made for us, and we have to play by the rules. But frustrating for us and for finance teams and everything.
Typically, I think Bruno was put it very diplomatically, but I would simply make the observation that if there were no new rules, there'd be no reason for rule-making auditors to go to first-class hotels in developed countries.
Yeah, my thoughts.
Councillor Jeffries.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, really just I'm just interested to know in the controls findings, the details of the findings identified. You've got some reoccurring items and a couple of new ones, which I think you touched on, but we did have a number of items that have been raised in the previous management letter, which staff were addressing, and I just wondered whether they had all been dealt to, other than the ones that we've decided that we're not going to deal with anyway, or whether these are the same ones coming through, and whether the new ones are of any particular significance. And it was really just to get a feel for that. All right, I'll go first. So yes, yeah. So most of the ones that we were addressing, they're not on this report anymore, so I'm happy with them addressed. Right. Either that or they were tested again. I'm pretty sure the ones from the tested. In terms of the ones that are recurring, the payments from online banking, that's what we prospect last year. There's no way for us to implement that, so anything about it. So it's coming.
Yep.
The policies are due. Procurement policy was actually done recently, and unfortunately I didn't notice this. It wasn't hadn't been given to them, so to pass it on. I think it was done between the interim visit and final visit. So when they asked for an interim, it hadn't been reviewed and it has been since. So it's an update, and obviously the forward policy is like it's the next item. A couple of items down. Debt policy, yes, that should. So that's me. Sensitive expenditure is kind of always going to come up on something on issue, particularly type. Team our size, we try and review everything, the old things through. So that one surprises there. The asset register, yeah, so we've obviously our teams to get our process in place. So we've improved on what was there last time. This time it's just a timing thing. Part of that did relate to talking about valuation or probably some of the changes that were happening around the data standards. So it's a pause on putting it to RAM for a while, so we didn't do anything there. So that didn't happen. That delayed putting it in my system. So basically the system fine. So there's an explanation of that as well. This year, because that's what should be fine. The metered water one, that's more to do with the testing. So Deloitte asked for information to get for that. The problem is we put another process over the top of that, there's a flowing lead, which keeps that record of that review. But unfortunately, we pass that on to them. I think about it at the time. So now that I've thought about it, so we pass that on. Hopefully that will disappear. And then obviously the 2 new ones. Yeah. But everything else that was on previous letters.
Right, so perhaps to Bruno then, as far as you're concerned, there's no significant issues or no surprises.
That's right.
Yep.
A lot of some of these findings are report like housekeeping points,
Yep.
not significant efficiency that you don't worry about. So the problem for containers, we do disclose them. And yeah, when we issue our final reports, we can say some of these others will also drop them as we offer the information.
That's great.
Anything else that's come up with that.
Happy with that. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I guess I'll just make this point if I could, Tony, and then I'll go to you. This is your first year, I think, Bruno, in the chair from memory. And so what I would, from my perspective, lumps and bumps are just part of life in an organisation, particularly one which is little capacity constrained, little resource constrained. What I'm interested in, and I'm going to be asking you this question next year, assuming I'm still around, is are you happy with the direction of travel? For me, I'm less interested in data than I am in trends. In other words, are you seeing an improvement in the way in which the audit program is being delivered? Is it being more effective? I think this year, in some respects, is a bit of an outlier because you guys are all working under a lot of pressure because it's election year. But I'm really interested, and I think this really goes to the heart of Councillor Jeffrey's question. Are we on an upward trajectory from a trend in terms of the way in which we prepare and respond to you and your team? So I'm going to be asking you that next year. Okay. Sorry, Tony.
Through you, Chair. I guess I'm curious about why some of the findings are labelled reoccurring when in actual fact the only thing that's reoccurring about them is the heading. So the sensitive expenditure ones are completely different to last year's ones. The policies are completely different to last year's ones. So I'm just wondering why, because it makes it sound like we're not doing any work on the ones the year before. And acknowledging Brendan saying the payments through online banking, we've agreed not a priority for us. So happy for that one to be reoccurring, but I just wonder why the other ones are reoccurring when they're completely different to last year.
I'd probably say that it's probably under the broad heading of where we do our testing. So there are findings around sensitive expenditure that are reoccurring. Not the specific one. So look, I'm not fussed whether you want to call it reoccurring or new. It doesn't matter to me. That one is that you want to put it as we could tweak the wording to say there's different findings to last year, but still finding within sensitive expenditure. Yeah.
I think that would be wise. Thank you for that. The other thing I think would be useful to note from a context perspective, I think when we all started our journey, started this triennium, from memory, we had quite a lot of unfinished management accepted audit recommendations, and I think it's to Graham and Brendan's credit, together with a little bit of governance oversight as well, that we've managed to whittle right down. So I think we do need to acknowledge, Graham, the work that you and Brendan and the team have done to chip away at those things. So thank you for that. Okay,
Yes, good question.
your wish it.
Yeah, through the chair. On the areas of audit focus, valuations of infrastructure assets, our Three Waters infrastructure was valued in 2023. You're talking about revaluation every 3 years. So do we do that in 2026? Would you delay it a year before the transfer to Waikato Waters?
I guess that's partly a council call. So there's no requirement to value every 3 years. The requirements on the standards is around the carrying value, fair value assets. So if we were to do a review next year, a fair value assessment, risk assurance back in June, we do next year's one and we decide the water value actually hasn't moved that much, we could potentially delay it. Whether we'll be happy with that, I guess we'll get a similar discussion to have with them. Given the nature of the fact that the assets will be transferred on 30 June, 1st of July 2027, I think it would make sense to do that, particularly because there might be a valuation of the assets transferred anyway, so it seems to want us to spend money to do valuations if we don't have them. But I guess part of that is just climate and inflation and cost of risk stuff, something large government values that I'll be sure.
Just seems to make sense to do it once rather than twice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's where I would be intending to go. But obviously, we are bound also by the standards. If it turns out that it's something we should be doing it, I'll have to do it.
We would possibly like to Brendan said there that the key is that has the beneficiary going to be next year. I tend to take a pragmatic view on this, so if it was, I'd be comfortable if we got to the back of the figure box exercise and say, let's move last 20 million for valuation next year, so save the cost of having to go through the valuation process.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Okay, sorry, Councillor Jeffrey.
Yeah, sorry, just one other one while we're talking about valuations just reminded me. I can remember asking the question some time back as to why we had appointed Aon as our reviewers.
Yep.
And whether you were comfortable with their ability to actually conduct that review.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the same way?
I think the actual, how can I do this? I think the review has been good in terms of the actual work. The output has been good. I guess the issue has been around potentially communication and timing. There was a deadline was given that they committed to, and then push that back a bit. And then 2 or 3 days, about 10 days, if it was before the first version. 10 days earlier. That obviously didn't help with the order. Like planning. And then when they came back, this is what the questions to address. Last one, there is 10 things. So the actual output, yeah, happy with that. I think they've got the skills and the knowledge to actually do the work. I guess it's just the timing and project management side leaves a little bit to be desired.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful segue into the next item. How about, thank you for that. How about we deal with this particular item now? I will move and Councillor Jeffries will second that we receive the update on the progress of the annual report audit from Deloitte. Right, let's do that. Let's turn now, and Bruno, you're welcome to stay for as long as you like. Let's turn now to the next item, which is the roading valuation itself. So I had not appreciated that the Aon paper is in fact a draft until I reread the front cover to see it stamped draft, but it wasn't indicated in the covering note that it was a draft.
Right.
So where are we at with this thing?
I think as I said earlier, you say, I can't, whatever I said it. We did get version 4 through this morning. So there was, so Deloitte has been given a draft along with our report and our tables. They've started doing some work on it. As not through lots of work, they've identified some minor issues, only minor, with Aon's report and also with our report. And so we fixed those. That version 4, I emailed them on Friday afternoon about lunchtime, and they got to it this morning. That was just, so yeah, the changes that have happened, there's been a couple. One was, the latest one was in the end of the report. It goes through each of the different asset types and how we determine the costs. A couple of them still referred to using stats adjusters when we actually used NZTA. So it didn't actually change the calculations or anything. It was just their reference. They had the right reference.
I guess from the those of us who are not roading valuation cognoscenti,
Yes.
is there any material difference between where you and your team landed,
yeah,
and what the Aon folks are saying?
No. So in their report, I think it's Appendix B, they do have a table where they've done their calculation versus our calculation with differences. That hasn't changed at all between the version that's in here and version 4, and not expecting it to change the final either. I think
So we're really talking about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin then.
yeah, I think the difference was about $22,000 in the replacement cost, or the depreciated replacement cost, about $500 depreciation. So no real difference on $500 on a $4.7 million depreciation.
Exactly. So a wise person would try and close off this peer review as fast as possible, given
Yeah.
the burn rate, wouldn't they?
Yes, and so now that we've got this report, the version 4 report back, we'll go back to them and say, yeah, we're happy with that. Finalisation report, get it back to them.
Okay. And Brendan, Bruno, I totally understand that you still got to go through your audit process, respect that. But having seen the drafts, is there any question about, broadly speaking, the methodology that's being approached? We're not going to see a situation where you folks say you actually got the methodology completely wrong.
Highly unlikely at this stage. I have been working through it. And as we went, it's just tying it in a sense now. But we'll also need to talk to Aon and get their representations, which they were refusing to do for their finalised reports. And I think they've done this week.
Okay, so we need to turn the tap off and get the report finished, so these guys can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got some other questions, but colleagues, do you have questions about the rating valuation? Well, the question in my mind, Brendan, and I probably am the only one who can get away with this. Do we need to adopt the rating valuation? I mean, at the end of the day, what I see is a moving feast. Again, helicopter first principles.
Yeah.
You and your team have done some work. Then you've got your friends in from Aon and peer reviewed it.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be audited.
Yeah.
Who gives a monkeys what the committee thinks?
I guess, well, Deloitte does for a start. It is a
Require us to adopt a valuation.
Yeah, I think the process is that those charters of governance need to be covered with valuation.
Okay, so in summary then, Brendan, you and your team have done some work. It's been peer reviewed. We're getting to the short strokes in terms of the finalisation of the peer review. But importantly, there's no material difference in terms of that outcome between where you and your folks landed and where the Aon folks will land.
Yeah.
Leaving aside the question as to whether Deloitte suddenly decide to wander off piste and say the methodology is wrong, leaving that to one side. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And what Bruno's saying is we'd really like us to adopt the valuation.
Yeah, because it does have quite a significant impact, obviously, on the balance sheet financial statements.
Okay.
It's not really a decision that should be made operational level, it should be at the government's level. It's adopted.
So I'll just leave that there. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and really, mine's sort of an observation around exactly what you're saying. So I got myself quite tied up with trying to work the difference out between the 22 and the 25 valuations, and I couldn't find common thread, I guess is what I'm saying. So,
In terms of movements by category.
and this will be my level of understanding rather than reflection on yourselves, but just wondered if this was something that, if it's important, now that Peter said what he's saying, I'm wondering if there is value in it, but whether we should, as at some stage, get a workshop on it, if we need to really understand it, but if there isn't a necessity, if we can accept all the work that's gone on behind the scenes and that the trend looks reasonable, yes, it's just.
Brendan, from a depreciation perspective.
Yeah.
What does this mean in terms of funding?
So what it actually means is, so this year, off the top of my head, we budgeted about 5.05 million, I think, for depreciation, and the valuation's coming at 4.7 for existing assets. So we're actually under budget. However, we will have obviously capital works landing each year, which will be depreciated, which aren't included in that calculation.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be all right in terms of funding. It's not going to mean that next year we suddenly have to jump and raise the rates substantially to cover.
Because when you clear away all the fog and the dust, the only thing that really matters is what is the delta created by this work in terms of depreciation? And does that create a problem for you in terms of funding it? And you're saying, no,
Not at this point.
okay. That's taken care of about 40 pages of material.
Yes, I'm interested, what I've done, thrown out there, information is that legislation for the Waikato waters and water entities is to not carry the water assets at fair value, so carrying the cost less depreciation, which is very different to what all the councils currently do. But I think part of the reasoning is the pain that the valuations cause. The valuations can differ very significantly with different assumptions. And it's, I think when New Zealand government decided to fair value all property, plant and equipment, which is one of the few countries in the world that actually do it, they've only realised subsequently how many pain that this causes and how much layers of cost it does add. So that you seem to be rectified going what's what is it?
Okay.
And I guess the other thing I want to say is, you keep referring to me at my team, but it wasn't really my team. They've done most of the bulk of the work on this. I can't take credit for most of it. So I just want to say thank you for the hard work that she put in. I know she worked nights, weekends to get us to a point where we can get it to handle the songs.
That's kind of you to say so, Brendan, and thank you, Emma, to you and your team. I'll correct the record.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one further question? So,
Of course.
you talked about having the audited report back in time for adoption on the 9th of October. Is there any way that we can get it at least a day earlier? So that we've got it actually, I realise it's going to be a done deal.
Yeah.
You know, but I think probably from my perspective, I'd like to be able to have a look at that before we take it to the council on the, I know we've got a meeting in the morning.
Yeah.
But if there's any chance of getting it just a little earlier, that'd be good.
The Aon report for this. Oh, the actual annual report document. Yes. So as I said, the last item, the aim is to get that out to you like Thursday this week, so a week before. So you have plenty of time through.
Brendan, just to show you that I read this, page 60.
60.
Of the report from your friends at AL.
Yep.
There's a reference to missing quantity attributes. I'm going to assume that while they're missing, there's nothing there that's material to the valuation outcome.
No, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 assets that just for some reason quantity's missing. And so that's obviously something as part of our data improvement. that
Right.
this team-
So Emma, you're pretty confident we can fill those gaps in? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so the recommendation is that we adopt the road evaluation. Is everyone happy to do that? Great, excellent. Brendan, Emma, thank you for your work. I will move and it'll be seconded by Councillor Hughes. Thanks, Kaya. Okay, let's. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Emma. Let's move now to the item 94 on page 74. So we're doing extremely well. This is the prevention of fraud and corruption policy and protected disclosures policy adoption. Can we assume, Brendan, that the changes to the current policies are marked up?
Yes, yes.
Great. Thank you very much for doing that. Makes it so much easier. Does anyone have any questions about those policies? I just had one, Brendan. There's a reference in the section on page 82 to relevant legislation.
Yes.
Which refers to the Protected Disclosure Act 2000. I thought it had been overhauled in 2022 and updated in 2025. Is that correct? Is that just a typo?
It might just be a typo.
Okay. Would you mind just checking that and if necessary, just updating
Yes.
the legislation? I'm going to assume that what's in our policy reflects the most recent legislation. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything?
I had a couple of, not just minor ones, Mr. Chairman, on page 99, under the heading core principles, we talk about establishing, implementing, maintaining, monitoring, and so on. But I just wondered, how is it intended to regularly monitor and report on those processes, and who's going to be doing it?
Do you mean 99 or 89?
99.
Oh, I'm on the next document, am I?
That's a risk management.
I beg your pardon.
That's not me.
Well ahead of us as always, Councillor. Why don't we save that question because it's a great question. These are really important policies, aren't they?
Yeah.
Brendan, particularly from a staff perspective, the protected disclosures regime. And given the obsession that the auditors have with fraud. What is the rollout plan? How we nicely type these things and we get them passed and then we put them in a little folder. What happens now?
So these policies have gone out to all staff for a comment.
Excellent.
And I had one comment back because on page 82 that you actually mentioned of, I referred to code faux conduct as opposed to code bold conduct. That was the only feedback I had. Either that means no one
come from the
cared.
consenting team, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Either means no one actually read them or everyone read them and appreciated it.
But importantly, they've gone out for consultation, which is really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Tanya has some other points you were going to raise about that.
Yeah, of course.
So through you, Chair, so I'll just draw members' attention to page 77. Under the fraud and corruption minimisation, you'll see that there's been quite a lot of change to that particular section. And what Brendan and I have been talking about is rather than being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, we'd like to focus a bit on being the fence at the top. And actually having some sessions, some education sessions with staff around expectations in terms of ethical behaviour. When I've run scenarios with staff in previous organisations around ethics in the public sector, I've been quite amazed at the span within ethical boundaries, but the whole question of, you know, if Brendan took a pen home every day and you were sitting next to him, would you say something? If Brendan took $20 from the till home every day, would you say something? And so the connection between the fraud and protected disclosures policy is there, but testing the kind of, when does it become a problem and when do you raise the alarm bell is kind of where I'd like to start. So I've been talking to Professor Karen Latham at Victoria University. She is the head of the ethics department there. And she's just put her final proposal to me to run some workshops for staff on ethics in the public sector. So we are going to get Karen and the team to do some of those sessions either later this year or earlier next year, and tie it in with these policies and the practical application of these policies.
What an excellent initiative. Thanks very much, Tony.
Just one question there, Chair. Obviously, just on that page 7, excuse me, on page 77, Tanya, why have elected members been crossed out?
So we've basically broadened the definition so we don't have to repeat ourselves and say employees, contractors, consultants, temporary, full-time, part-time, casual, elected members, etc. We've put a definition in there saying employees covers all of those, and we refer to them as employees.
And then we also made sure that we used the same term in both policies. So one was referring to staff, one was referring to employees. We've now made both policies employees, which covers everyone, so volunteers, elected members.
So employees being anybody who's remunerated by council.
Or not remunerated in the case of volunteers as well. Yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on page 81 under investigation officer, it's been changed there that this person may be external to council. So to what circumstances would that be? I mean, could it potentially be will be rather than maybe? Is it based on a severity? Is it on a severity basis? So let's say $20 versus $20,000.
It might be more who's actually involved or potentially involved in it.
Yeah.
So, for example, the sort of hierarchy, I guess, is staff member, then probably Tanya would be the one that would organise the investigation. Someone else would do it, but she would be in charge of it. If it's still Tanya, then it should go through space Max. So it's going here. If it was Max or elected members as a whole, or a few of you, then we might need to go to someone outside, because I mean, it might be Peter as the chair of the risk assurance, might be something like externally. Obviously, if it's depending on the nature of it, it might be a secret fraud office thing, it might be police, depending on the nature of the thing. So yeah, it would depend on the severity of who's.
I suppose in a perfect world, it would always be somebody external at any level of investigation. So yeah, but I suppose it's not always practical.
No.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone else comfortable? So on that basis, I will move, and His Worship will second that we adopt the policies. Thanks everyone for your work. Okay, thank you, Brendan. You can retire unhurt. Let's move now to Graham's paper, which is the quarterly risk report, risk management framework, amended risk management policy and 2026 risk management work program. And the recommendation is that we endorse the framework and the policy and endorse the draft 2026 risk management work program. Graham, is there anything that you wanted to say by way of introduction before we get into questions?
Yes, just a couple of things, Mr. Chair. So this report is still in the development stage, and we're hoping into the future that it becomes all encompassing. The risk management policy, we brought this to Risk and Assurance at the previous meeting. There's some small amendments to that namely around that the change of the purpose to give it some balance, whereas I think you'd raised this, Mr. Chair, that taking risks as part of growth and innovation doesn't always need to be negative. We've also asked for endorsement from this committee for the risk management framework. This has been through Council's leadership team with a number of iterations, and it basically dovetails into the risk management policy. You'll see in this report that we've got I guess a draft risk management pathway for 2026, and I guess this is furthering embedding risk into the culture within our organisation as we work through that, and also include this report is just some examples of just some emerging risks, and you may say, so what? But they're just, I guess, specific examples of where we don't know what's going to happen. Something that we just need to be aware of, and that so they're on our radar. And just a comment at the end around operational risks. We include operational risks at our leadership team meetings every week, where we work through those as tasks. So we're hoping moving forward that we further develop this, and then we'd report back to this committee on what potentially would be the top 4 or 5 operational risks that we need to be aware of. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Graham. One of the things that came out in the Waikato District Council meeting that I chaired a couple of days ago was, am I right to say that the government's looking to reduce its roading fund? Okay. While others are asking questions, let me see if I can find that item. Does anyone have any questions that they want to? Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 101, under roles and responsibilities, under the council section, it's got nominate members for the risk insurance committee. So I see that as coming from council. In the past, has that been done by the mayor or by the council? Sure. Page 101, under roles and responsibilities. Into the table there, second one down as council.
Yeah.
Nominate members for the very first bullet point, nominate members for the risk and insurance committee.
Mhm.
So
Great.
I guess where I'm going with this is, if I just look on this, it means that we're about to have a new council, and I wonder if it hasn't been a role by from elected members that aren't on risk insurance committee as to how much we'll do and how important it is. And I was just wondering how the risk insurance committee has been formed in the past.
Okay, so post-election, invariably what I'd do is sit down with Tanya. We'd go through all the different committees, subcommittees that there are, and determine who we felt were most appropriate to be on those committees, and then pretty much ask the question of councillors if they have an interest in being part of that committee, or the other option there as well, which does say that, hey, there'll be heads put up, say, I'd really like to be a part of this committee. Is there, that opportunity? So it's a mixture of the two. So it's kind of a hybrid model.
Okay, I found the item, Graham. Just reading from the papers which are in open session. It's headed proposed legislative changes to the funding of roading by the central government. New Zealand's Infrastructure Commission released its National Infrastructure Plan in 2025. This report signals a significant shift in government priorities. It forecasts a substantial decrease in funding allocated to land transport. Currently, land transport receives 1.2% of the nation's GDP. The plan projects this figure will drop to just 0.8% of GDP. This funding reduction is quite significant. It will directly impact the money available to local councils who are responsible for maintaining and improving our roads, public transport and cycleways. Goes on. Would be useful, would you mind getting someone to have a look at that? Just to see whether it should be added to our emerging risk.
Yeah, that obviously is a significant risk for us. So.
How recent is that, Peter? Can I
2 days ago.
ask? Yes, so we've been given no heads up on that, SCEs. So I don't know where you've got that information.
So that was in the open section of the emerging risk paper presented to the Waikato District Council Risk and Assurance Committee.
Is it old news? Because we've already had a funding cut for the next 3 years.
Okay, don't know.
Yeah. No, and I had the Waikato CE forum as recently as Friday, and no one raised it there. So I'm just wondering how recent
I'll
that
find
is.
out.
Yeah, just before we
Okay.
all panic.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
one question for me, just on risk appetite and tolerance, and this is out of my own curiosity. Do auditors have an opinion on risk management? Because I'm never sure what they have an opinion on. They seem to choose what they have an opinion on. You know, is it a risk for us if we don't adopt or we haven't embraced or engaged with risk management correctly?
Do you want to answer that, Graham? I can speak from my experience, but from your perspective.
Yeah, I think, you know, our auditors work under a, I guess, a set of guidelines put down by the Office of the Auditor General and you know, so I guess they're reasonably risk averse. You know, so they would see because we're effectively an entity funded by rates, you know, they would look at, as an example, things like the Kiwi House one. You know, they would put a risk lens over that, Max. But yeah, I guess generally they're just working under the under a set of guidelines. So.
All right. So how are we proposing to give effect to this framework and policy, Grant?
I think it's more just endorsing the direction that we're on. The policy and the framework are basically the tools that we're going to use to manage risk, and so when we move into reporting on our strategic risk, reporting back to council on any risk related matter, we'll refer back to that framework. You know, that we've used effectively the risk calculator there, and it's to give some consistency across the organisation where previously we had I guess different departments all kind of managing risk in a different way. So I just going to take this opportunity to just acknowledge the work that Rebecca's done as well, and so she may want to answer some of these questions too if comes to it. So
Brilliant sidestep, Graham. Thank you. So Rebecca, please come forward. A shame not to give you the opportunity to share the spotlight.
Sure thing.
Or is it heat lamp? So Rebecca, one of the things I like about this is that you've got an indicative plan for 2026 in terms of rolling this out. And when I look at this is page 94 at your list of tasks, I would imagine your tasks headed training and awareness and embedding risk management in operations would probably be pretty much at the top of your list from a priority perspective. Would that be fair?
Very much so.
Okay. And you've got the budget in order to be able to do this work.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent, good answer. There was a reference on page 113 to an item, this is for Rebecca and Graham. The strategic risk register is supposed to be attached. I couldn't find that. Was I missing something? So it says the strategic risk register is attached to it as Appendix B. Was that a deliberate omission, or am I missing something?
No, it should have been attached.
Okay. That's okay. And then final question, there's a reference obviously to risk appetite. I can see it referred to, but I don't actually see risk appetites ascribed. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that? Because we've done some work on this previously, haven't we, with the late great.
Just
Ross.
Yeah, so we have talked about this at LT, and I think it's something we do with the new council and the new risk and assurance committee. Like at this point in the proceedings, it feels like kind of a bit of a waste of resources to pump into. Yeah, sorry, but it's sort of, I think. Getting the new council
I
on
think
board.
that's entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
And it is fair to say that we're all yesterday's news. So it's a very diplomatic way of saying it. So that's absolutely fine. What I would expect then, Rebecca, at an early stage in the new triennium, whoever's sitting around this table, that it would be useful to find out what your work plan is in terms of rolling out this really important structural piece. And then secondly, how you plan to deal with risk appetite with the new council and the new triennium. You could make that as a work on for the next time.
We did talk about that. We would hold a workshop around risk appetite and tolerance and have a good understanding of that, and then be given direction from the new council on that.
Brilliant. Okay, that's really helpful. Thanks, Rebecca. Graham, is there anything else from your perspective?
No, the only thing I was just going to add is that just in terms of the risk management framework, I just sort of went you to page 112, where this is an important part of the framework in terms of the risk escalation and acceptance, where we have a level of risk from extreme to minimal, at what level in the organisation that is managed, where we believe that something's low risk or moderate risk can be dealt with at staff level, and once we sort of start to get to high and extreme risk, then it comes back to council. And it just goes in line that we're managing risk on a daily basis.
That's entirely appropriate, and that's why I think there's this important distinction between what we call strategic risks, which are really risks which, if they're not properly managed, can really imperil the council's ability to meet its strategic objectives, and that what you call the day-to-day or operational risks, which you totally understand would be managed by the chief executive and her team on a day-to-day basis without necessarily any recourse to the committee. So I totally get that. It's totally appropriate, and it's particularly appropriate in a resource-constrained organisation like this. So thank you. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is a retrospective question now, not one in advance.
A nostalgic question.
It's the same question. It's under the heading Core Principles on page 98, and I just wondered. I haven't actually gone, to be fair, I haven't gone through this in any great detail, so I've probably missed it. But I just wondered who's actually going to be responsible for implementing and monitoring all of these risk management processes. Is that a role of Tania, Or is it going to be a delegated role down through the management team, or who's actually going to do it? Is the question. And how often?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. What, like, I guess the journey we're on is around beating risk culture in the whole organization, you know, not just one or two people. And so obviously at the end of the day, the chief executive is responsible, but the risk culture has to flow down through the leadership team and through the whole organization, that we're managing risk consistently. And I think, you know, with the maturity assessment that we carried out last year and we'll carry it out again, it sort of gives us an idea of how much that is embedded in the organisation. And while we only conducted that survey across the leadership team, I think in the future we'll probably take that out to, you know, a couple of levels down, just so we get that general understanding of where it's at. To answer your question, Mr. Jeffries,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, again, I think it's really important to recognise that within a resource constrained operation, the best way to do is to set the direction of travel and to make incremental change, which I think is what we've certainly tried to do. And I think where Rebecca and Graham got to is a world away from where we were 3 years ago. And also not to forget to acknowledge the work that Ross did to kick this off. So I think we're definitely making.
yes, I think if what we've effectively tried to do now is and the work that Rebecca's done is operationalise it, you know, rather than it's just out there, you know, is that how we actually manage it.
Okay, so on that basis, then the proposal is that we adopt these documents. I will move it. Councillor Prendergast for second. And okay, we will carry that. I think it's probably, thanks, Rebecca, it's probably a good opportunity to stop for morning tea. On that subject, on the subject of coffee, you will have heard me say over many times that the coffee here does not befit an A-rated council. So I have I've decided to do something about that. So I have gifted to the council a small little coffee machine and milk frother. It'll go into the gift register. And I hope that reflects the fact that I think that during the course of this training and in previous years, the council has done a heck of a job in, as evidenced by the council mark report, in terms of the way in which you serve the community. So a very small way for me to say thank you and well done. Let's go to coffee. Was there anything in particular, Noah, that you wanted to draw to our attention before we get questions and answers?
The only thing I did want to draw out was, I mentioned in the report, 4.13, the extraordinary results of, the fire evacuation audit over at the library, doing that in the minutes, I think it was minute 17, and they had members of the public in there. I thought that was incredible. So I just wanted to put that call out to them and say well done.
That is extraordinary, isn't it? Well done to them. Thank you. Did anyone have any questions? I've got a couple. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually, for sure, as you mentioned 4.13, I also got a question on that. So have you got a targeted time that you're sort of looking at for evacuations? I mean, that is an extraordinary result for the library, but do you actually, have you targeted a specific time that you want evacuations both here and the library?
Yeah, so we haven't set out official targets and we haven't put those in out there. But the sort of unofficial target that we're trying to hit is like about 2 months 30, 2 months. So we're trying to hit around there. And we kind of set a very high standard so that we make sure people are out of the building safe. But in reality, with the mechanism of safety we have in place, we have more time than that. So
Cool. That's what I have. 4.7 on the audits. See the 10 of 15 completed. I assume you have priorities for those audits. So are they the 5 that haven't been done lower priority than perhaps the 10 that you have done, or do you set a priority list for those?
yeah, so we in effect we have a priority list. So we have ones that we do monthly and we have ones that we will do 6 monthly. So the monthly ones are obviously the high use ones like this building. When I'm saying 10 out of 15, is that in that quarter? For example, this building would count for 3 of those. So we have to do it three times in that quarter. So all the buildings that were required to be audited in that quarter have been audited at least once. But some of them weren't done as frequently as we had set our standard to.
Cool. And just finally, just a comment about the 4.14 about it's good to see the buy-in staff of the Health and Safety Committee, because from personal experience, it's always been quite difficult to get people to put their hands up to do that. And if you got more than you need, that's really is a good thing. And also, just a comment on the expectations and the support from the CE on that too is great to see as well. So it's looking pretty good now.
Yeah, cheers, appreciate it. And it was really great to see having more interest in the committee. And it was appreciate Taka's support with that as well.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks. No, just while colleagues are reflecting on their questions, I just wanted to ask you just to reflect on the period of time that you've been here and your sense about the direction of travel of the organisation from a health, safety and wellbeing perspective. I'm interested in whether you're seeing a positive trend, whether you've got anything that's concerning you. It's a great opportunity either than training to look back.
And I think overall, we've moved in we're moving in a good direction. We are starting to see more people think about health and safety. For example, I've just had a meeting this morning around another policy that we're looking at that has a very strong health and safety component. And I've had staff who are coming to me proactively around some aspects like contract management, what's required from that, which I wasn't necessarily seeing when I first started. So we're seeing a bit of a culture change slowly. And I'm not going to say that we are anywhere near done where we need to be, but we're certainly on the right track to get there eventually.
So from your perspective as an industry expert, you're comfortable with the direction of travel? We're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks very much for your efforts since you've been here. I think we've seen a real step change. So we appreciate that. Councillor Jeffries.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. No, it was just under 4.6, item E. working when under the influence of drugs and alcohol. How often do we do these random checks on staff? Are they? I know they're random, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
But is that something that's programmed in it every so often? You know.
So we don't do random drug and alcohol testing.
Okay.
And there's probably a few reasons for that. One is that we have reasonable cause testing. I think that that's a very strong measure. And their random drug testing can be quite problematic from an employment point of view. You can set up correctly, but it is very difficult. And we think the measures that we've got, we can manage that effectively. We're not a massive team. We don't have engagement with all our people every single day. So,
Right. Okay. And just one other one, the 4.2, I think it was, where we talked about incidents resulting in injury. I gather the staff member involved is recovered.
the staff members, and both that caused injury, one has recovered, one's still having, recovering or healing from the injury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's something that's happened. So yeah, I will probably wish them all the best from us. I think just a speedy recovery.
Yeah, I'll pass it on.
Yeah, good on you.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question's really just been answered. But I guess if you did suspect the drug problem, how do you
Sorry, if we can you repeat it, handle it. Yeah, so we have procedures outlined in our drug and alcohol policy, but the general gist of what you would do is that if you believe someone's under the influence, you would obviously get a second opinion on that. Then you need to document exactly what their behaviour is, what's happening that you think they're under the influence. We'd obviously then pull that person aside and go, hey, we've got a couple of people here thinking, disclose all the information. These are the reasons we think you're under the influence. And then we are going to ask you for a drug test under the reasonable cause clause. And then they obviously have to give consent. And then if they give consent, we would take them to go and get it tested. If they don't give consent, then there is that falls under our code of conduct as that misconduct.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, councillor. Does anyone else have anything else that they want to raise? Okay, so on that basis, we're going to receive Noah's report with thanks. I'll move that and his worship will second. Thanks very much, Noah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's turn now to the surprise item of the session. Risk pool. Which is not to be confused with Deadpool. Although that may, the way things are going, be similar in outcome. Graham, these are dark forces, aren't they? Is there anything that you'd like to specifically bring to our attention? Because I think this is the first time we've seen this. And the news is potentially not great and unquantifiable. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. I just we brought this report to council last month, but I think it was appropriate that we bring it to this committee as well, just to highlight the potential risk areas. And there are three of them effectively. So attached to this report is a brief history of risk pool. It was a mutual liability fund that ran for 20 years from 1997 to 2017. Nearly every council in New Zealand was part of it. The decision was made to wind it up in 2017. there are a number of historic claims, and they're big claims, you know, multi-level apartment complexes in Queenstown, Auckland, etc., which they're legacy claims, but they have the potential to cost a lot of money. Because risk pool is a mutual fund, then the members are effectively all jointly liable. While at the moment risk pool are actively pursuing reinsurance through the brokers in London, there's potential that they don't get that. It's a complex process, as you would understand, being a lawyer yourself, Mr. Chair, and they've had to hire specialist lawyers, and they're dealing with the obviously the English legal system. And the third risk is around the trust deed, which is in the process of being amended. I guess the major clause in there that required amendment was around the trustees being liable. When you've got multi-million-dollar claims, that would probably make them a little bit nervous. So they required 90% acceptance to change the trustee across the country. I believe that's still ongoing. We've signed our consent to chief executive through delegated authorities. So it's really just for information only. It's kind of a wait and see what happens at this stage. So take any questions.
So am I right to say that the trials that you referred to are trials where risk pool is seeking to recover monies from its reinsurers? Is that correct?
Yes, that's a separate exercise that's going on. So they before they go back to the member councils on a call, they would go to their reinsurers, but obviously there's pushback from the reinsurers, and it's become quite you're having to go through like a litigation process, basically through the English courts for them to step in. I think if they can't get reinsurance with the size of these claims, I'd imagine that the government would have to step in. It's at some stage, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee of that.
Is it possible for you to have done any back of the envelope calculation as to what the worst case scenario might be for your council?
We could do, you know, it's kind of, I guess, how long is a piece of string, depending on where they end up. It would be difficult. Even the call that was made, the last call, we didn't know until July the size of that call, and I suspect they didn't know till last minute either.
So the part of the problem is if risk pool is seeking contribution from the reinsurers, then what's left to be called on is effectively whatever you get out of the reinsurers deducted from the size of the claims that have been made.
That's correct.
Can I just ask, Mr. Chairman, through you, Graham, how would reinsurers be interested in something that's already happened? Isn't insurance taken out for future events? So if it's already happened and they know the extent dollar-wise of the claims and so on, are they really going to be interested in getting involved in that?
Look, that's way above my pay grade, Councillor Jeffries. And I'd say it's an incredibly complex matter, and you know, I don't even really attempt to understand how that market works.
So, Brendan, my recollection is that there's been nothing in previous audits about this.
But
What's your materiality level
Yeah.
for your
for the council audit, right? Yes, I'm on the mic. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's probably in the 300,000 least. Yeah. Next time I got the actual period.
Okay,
Yeah.
so far you've paid 20 plus GST.
Yeah.
In August. So I guess you're still well away from your materiality threshold.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that since this is a nationwide issue, I don't think I've ever seen an audit raise this as a potential problem.
Yeah, I guess, because historically they've only ever done one claim a year.
Right.
And obviously for most, yeah, because it's not a material amount for us, it might be material amount for big accounts, even because the materiality, something exponentially high.
Yes.
I guess it's never really been something the audit has picked up on.
So from your perspective as head of finance.
Yeah.
I don't see you freaking out. And I recognize that, we're talking about unknown unknowns. So I'm just trying to work out what to do with this. You always get a bit nervous when you hear, by the way, we've never told you this before, but we've got this issue which is unquantifiable, unknown, which we have no control. That's the point which you typically break out risk management perspective.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is that if history is a good judge of the future, it's probably not going to be material.
No, I think reaching back now through years, I think the most we had one year was maybe 45,000 off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Actually less than that.
yeah, I think what happened is that there's been a number of calls over the last, particularly over the last 7 or 8 years, but I thought it all been put to bed. That it was over. They were getting less and less, and we hadn't had any for quite some time. And there was a case, I think, last year. I think it was in Rotorua, and that they found against the whoever it was, and so that sparked a whole heap of these other legacy claims again. So. The case in Rotorua had gone right through to the Supreme Court, so and it was overturned. So without and I think that's in the history there with that attachment. But yeah, I thought it was dead in the water. But
all right. So what I'm hearing is, yes, it's open. Yes, it's unlitigatable. On the positive side, it's historic only because. I certainly know that CoLab now leads of councils and negotiates directly with underwriters in Singapore. Spoken to one of the people on that trip just a couple of days ago. That seems to be going well. So it's historic. There's now a system where you're not exposed. And then my understanding is, Brendan Graham, that the government is looking to introduce legislation which will further reduce quite rightly council's liability in terms of future building. So what we're seeing is this is very much a historic issue.
that's correct. I think the new legislation is so effectively councils can't be last standing, so
Which is as it should.
Yeah, it will put it back on the developers.
Okay. All right. Brendan, thank you. I think it was worthwhile just hearing this. So thank you, Graham, for bringing this to our attention. It sounds to me like we're in as good a shape as we possibly can be. And if our head of finance is not freaking out, that's probably a good sign. Excellent. Okay. Councillor Jeffries.
Just a couple of quick ones. So as a minimum, would we be flagging this as a contingent liability?
Off the top of my head, I think it is listed in our contingent liabilities, but it's
Okay.
actually not quantified. so it's not
No.
paid up as much
Yeah.
as it should be.
Okay. And the other question really is, and I think it's already answered, but I just couldn't find it. So this 20,000 that we've been asked to pay, we haven't rated for that. So I gather that is that paid for out of just operating surpluses, or
Yeah.
do we make a provision annually for the potential to have
No,
further claims?
so, at the moment, no, we haven't, because as Graham said, we thought it was all dead.
Yeah.
Probably 6, 7 years ago, maybe a bit longer, we had received some guidance from Bristol, it might have been 10 years ago, actually, can't remember, where there was going to be a claim year after year for about 3 years in a row. So at that point, we did put budgets in to cover that, based on what we assumed the claim was going to be. I think we ended up being slightly under, but yeah, but at this point, we're not putting any provisions for it because we don't know for sure that it's happening. Having said that, when we come to do next year's annual plan, if we've had some sort of indication prior to adoption that there is going to be another call, then we could put the budget in to cover that. if needed.
Thanks, Brendan. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Brendan, the way I read the report was that the challenge was to establish whether there was a case to answer, which is true, obviously been established that there is a case to answer. But that can I assume that all of the cases have been lodged that will, so there's nothing now extra that will come out of the woodwork as a result of the results of this case?
Probably more Graham.
Yeah, there could be more cases, more legacy claims. You know, I guess it's, yeah, there's certainly uncertainty there.
So we're not yet dealing with a finite
Oh,
situation.
not by any means.
Yeah.
Right there.
But consoling to be able to say that in this case scenario. it doesn't-
Yeah, well, I guess we're not in this alone, you know, so every council in New Zealand was in Bristol. You know, so it's right across the whole sector. So we're only it's just our percentage. And the interesting thing is that we had no leaky buildings in our district. So we're paying for being part of a mutual fund. Yeah.
Interesting too, Mr. Chairman, if with the proposed change to the deed as to whether or not that'll impact on the reinsurer's assessment of their liability going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's an interesting question.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Graham, Brendan, thank you. Much appreciated the update.
Can I just
Of course.
add, please, so on page 1, 2, 3, it does say at present there are a number of mixed claims against risk pool. 2 of these claims go to trial. So there's a number of claims. We only know that 2 are going to trial. The second thing is we have chief executive forums, so national chief executive forums twice a year. And at the one before last, earlier this year, the whole board of risk pool turned up to front the CE's forum. So Marty Greenfield is the chief executive of Ōtorohanga City Council. He's the chair of risk pool. He ain't going to let us down. Hope he's watching the live stream. No, so it was really heartening to have them show up and have them answer our questions and to hear our concerns. So they are just in recent times, they have increased their communication as this has come to light. So the explanation has been given around, yes, why haven't we brought this to you earlier? Because we thought it was all going to come to an end.
Right.
It looked like it was.
Okay.
And in the larger scheme of things, 120,000 over the course of how many years? Yeah, those decisions were made. So now, yeah, we're bringing this to you because there's that potential big unknown out there.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you. Okay, let's turn now to happier topics, which is getting money in rather than paying it out.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, thank you. And seconded by councillor Prendergast. That's to receive it. Okay. Let's turn now to the outstanding debtors report. Welcome, Teresa. Thanks for the report. Is there anything in particular you wanted to draw to our attention?
No, I don't think so. Top of my head. I believe that the chair and I'm sure most of the committee is aware of the those in terms of the outstanding debtors with regards to development contribution and resource consents where that's at. So I won't bother going into details on that one.
Do we know where that's at? Do I know where that's at? Have I?
I will give you a partial update in
Okay,
the open forum,
right.
and I'll give you a partial update in the closed CE forum.
Why don't we just cut straight to the CE forum? Okay, thank you. I don't want to hold things up
Great.
if you're telling us something that everyone else knows and I don't, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, Brendan, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and apart from that, all the rest of the debtors are in a pretty good situation. Rates, yeah, so we've got our excuse me. First installment was due at the end of August or 28th, I think it was. So there's a bit more outstanding this year than there was the previous couple of years. Part of that obviously attributable to the increase in the rates and the economic time, people probably just prioritising paying other things. We also have had a lot more people go on to direct debits, and some of those are quite big ratepayers. So obviously the amount that's being paid on a fortnightly or monthly basis has increased. And then some people going into automatic payments as well through their own banking. Different things like.
Forgive me, Teresa and Brendan, for what might be a really stupid question. I'm trying to work out in my mind, because I'm really interested in trends, not data.
Yep.
So I'm trying to work out whether we're better off or worse off than past periods in terms of collections.
Mhm.
And what I'm trying to work out is whether you folks internally normalise collections having regard to direct debits. So when you're thinking about where you sit relative to collections,
Yeah.
do you do a normalization exercise? So you kind of factor out direct debits, because in many respects, you'd hope that that's kind of money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
That most people, I assume most people don't skip on direct debits. Is that fair?
Yeah, we do get the odd dishonor, obviously.
It would be an odd one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So then what I'm trying to work out is if, for example, you took out the direct debits, what does the direction of travel look like in terms of collections?
Yeah.
Top of head.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
that a helpful question? I'm just trying to work out what's important.
So I guess there is a slight increase in this year compared to previous years.
In terms of slowness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did notice quite a few people sort of didn't pay till first week of September as well. So some of this was reflecting obviously those payments. And again, that might just be if they forgot. It might be I didn't have the money paid out the following week after rates were due or something like that.
Is there a 10% penalty on?
Yes. Yeah. So in
And
theory,
that's automatic, isn't it?
we have to trigger the process to apply the penalty. So technically the penalty date was the 28th of August. We don't apply it on that day because obviously people pay that day. We don't process the banking until the following Monday. We used to obviously give a few days grace when we had checks because they sometimes aren't stuck in the mail. Usually by the time we actually get around to processing it with month-end process, it's probably about a week later.
Yeah.
So it was sort of mid the first week of September, we probably ran them. So people do get a bit of a grace period.
Okay.
No, technically we
That's fine.
don't have to.
But you do apply a 10% penalty.
Yes.
And then you collect with that penalty as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which should normally be a pretty good incentive to pay on time, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, they do have all kinds of excuses, but yes, we would,
But we know that you're immune to those, Teresa.
Just as a point of interest, I did our direct debits sitting around about 32% of our ratepayers. So, you know, it certainly has increased quite a bit with that, but, you know, like pointed out, you might get them weekly or fortnightly, so it's going to, you know, until the end of we did until the 31st of May, and so until then.
From your perspective, is moving to direct debit something that you really want to encourage?
Yes, because we can monitor the payments then, and so that I get a report every day to say whether they're dishonoured.
It's a lot less
So-
lumpy, isn't it, from a cash flow
Oh,
perspective?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I'd probably just like to mention too is the rates rebates.
oh, yes.
And just with the rates rebates, the Department of Internal Affairs have increased their criteria. So it used to be 32,000 was what it was last year's threshold
To income.
in terms of income. Yeah. So with the gold card this year, it's 45. So if you've got a gold card and your threshold is under 45, then you can apply for rates rebate, which is $805. So it's worth it. So in liaison with customer experience with the pop-ups, we've really been pushing that. And it was interesting that last year, the 24-25 rating year, we had 236 applications. This year in 3 months, we had 147. So, you know.
Do you know what, because obviously this has got implications on other ratepayers. It's all very nice for the people that benefit, but there's also the ratepayers that are left to subsidise the.
No,
No.
because the money comes from central government.
Yeah.
So the rates rebates are paid by DIA
Yeah.
to us.
So we just administer it on behalf of
Yeah.
Department of Internal Affairs. So every
Yeah.
month we put a say, this is how much that we've applied, and they pay us the money, honey.
So technically the taxpayers are paying for it, not the
Right.
ratepayers.
Yes.
But yes, a lot
Yeah.
less per taxpayer.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you think about the demographics of your community, and you said this was gold card.
Yep.
What percentage of your ratepayers are gold card holders, do you know?
Don't know that off
No,
that
that would be-
information for certain, but
Presumably the latest census information.
yes, that would
Yeah.
probably give us
Because
a
that
good
gives
idea.
you your starting point in
Yeah.
terms of the possibility of people that might be able to take advantage of the rates rebate.
Yeah.
It's also available to those that are just on benefit,
Yeah.
or their threshold is at 32. So if you're self-employed, you're also entitled to it as well. So, you know, so it does branch out to a wider community. Yeah.
Okay. And does the government pay on a quarterly basis or monthly?
Monthly.
Monthly,
Yeah.
Mm.
okay. Okay.
So that may also have contributed to why there's a bit of an increase, because some people may have been applying for that, so therefore we're holding off paying until that has been processed and money comes through.
Yep.
So once they apply, we process it against their rates account in our system. And we just every month we have to send a spreadsheet to DIA that they pay us that amount back.
So Teresa, one more question, then I'll go to his worship. Just if moving to a direct debit situation is good for us, what are we doing to publicise direct debits to the ratepayer base?
We do have it on the internet, you know, so and on our website, and when we put reminders out, we encourage direct debit that way. So we just try to keep it in their face. A lot of people don't like direct debit because we have control, so then we encourage them for automatic payment. But we do have within our debt management system, whereas if they're not paying enough to cover what their regular payments are, then it does flag us to say they're paying insufficient to have it paid by 31st of May.
Right.
Okay, you can send reminder letters out to people or notices saying, hey, thank you for paying.
Yeah, but you need to increase.
Yeah. If you increase it to this, then you'll clear your range, like I say.
And at the beginning of every year, we send out what we call a health check. So, you know, rates have increased. Do you still pay enough? These are the things that you need to do now. We get the odd, you know, that don't receive their rates invoice. So.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Your Worship.
just in relation to outstanding debtors on 4.6 with building consents in Waikaria Prison.
Yes.
Just wondering if that's with the regrowth or Waikaria Prison, now that can be revisited to be back to a 30-day. It's going to be another couple of years.
With the next stage, yeah, we will definitely be looking at getting better terms in place.
Yeah, rather than us being their bank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great point. And forgive me, Teresa, it might be a stupid question. Do our debtors records include invoices issued by the building division?
Yes.
Right, so it's a whole of council perspective that you've got.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anything that's invoiced basically comes through the data module. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any? Councillor Jeffries.
I just wanted to say thank you to Teresa and Brendan for the work that they're doing on this. It's good to see that you're still keeping on top of things, and so well done for that. I make the point that I think there are a lot of people in our communities who are struggling to pay to put food on the table, let alone pay rates. So that's obviously, for me anyway, that's an indicator of where rate arrears perhaps could be accruing. And the only other question really was, and it's probably an obvious one, but when people are paying rates which include arrears, payments go off the arrears and not the current.
Yeah. Oldest debt.
Yeah, good. Oldest first. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So one other thing I will point out is Teresa attended some debt management training that our Magic, our software provider, was doing.
right.
They actually used our data as the example data, so how good it is. So
Very well done.
if Teresa,
Very well done.
benefit there.
Teresa, while you've got the floor, is there anything that's particularly concerning you?
No, we just need to be transparent, try to encourage the ratepayers that we're not big bullies, that we're there to help them. And that's the kind of attitude that I have with them, just to empower our ratepayers really. And a lot of them are in a situation they don't want to be in. So we just do our best to encourage them. Well, yeah, we're not taking your house tomorrow or anything, it's a process, and we'll help you to do what needs to be done.
So
I don't see
you're
any-
obviously, I think, distinguishing between those people who are struggling and those people who are being deliberate in their actions.
Yes,
That's really
ones that just won't pay
of course.
until you tell them.
Yeah. Are you seeing a rise in sovereign citizens?
Not a significant rise.
No.
Probably had, compared to if you think
Right.
5 years ago, we've obviously had none back then. We've now probably got 2 or 3. One of those sort of resolved itself and started paying again.
Yeah.
Another one just came in this morning.
Right. So they've gone from sovereign to semi-sovereign.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
One,
Yeah.
yes.
And they go back to pre-treaty as well, Māori pre-treaty rights, that's the other thing too, so.
Okay,
mm.
all right.
And one thing, Mr. Chairman, is you may not be aware, but the staff have been very good with their pop-up, taking their pop-outs out to the community. And I know that they've had some good response from our way. And I guess you'd get quite a few rate inquiries at those pop-ups.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. I would encourage you to keep doing that. It's
Well
I
done.
just had to be on my time off and went for little George Raglan, and the pop-up was there, and
okay.
guess who was
Raglan.
ended up there? Oh, not Raglan, sorry, Okafia. And I ended up helping them.
Excellent. No, thank you.
So yeah, it's very good. Very
Okay.
encouraging.
Thank you very much. So I'll move that we receive the report with thanks, and it'll be seconded by Councillor Hughes. Excellent. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks very
you.
much appreciated. Okay, so the next is an information only report, but it's actually a decision report. Sharp-eyed Kaya has noted. Thank you, Kaya. So this is at page, colleagues, 130. Nadia, thank you very much for the report. Good morning. Thank you too. So is there anything you folks would like to specifically draw to our attention before we get into questions? This is a paper where you are asking us to adopt the revised risk profile and note the mitigation activities.
If I may, Chair. So e te hea mana, e te koromātua, me ngā kaikonhira, tēnei te mihi koutou. So this report by workshop, and using the previously presented item by Rebecca today with regard to the improved risk framework. I want to acknowledge that some aspects in that workshop session, particularly the detailed breakdown and categorization of risks, were quite complex and unclear around the table. So with that in mind, we've simplified the way in which the information was presented in this report, while still maintaining the level of detail needed to support the nature of the requested deep dive. The aim. Yes, right. I'd like to acknowledge the organisation's achievement, albeit self-assessed, in reaching them. So the risk rating of low for 2025. This was a target set by the committee, and it's reflected of both the elected members and staff's commitment in this area. The self-assessment is further supported by an external measure, and that's the annual Māori Leaders Survey, which showed that 100% of the respondents rated council's performance in its relationships with iwi leaders as the same or better than in previous years. And knowing how much you like trends, Chair, this continues the positive trend that we've seen in previous years and reinforces the progress that we are making collectively in this space.
You're on a hiding to nothing though, don't you? You realise there's nothing beyond 100%.
Nothing beyond that. That's right.
So Cassidy can probably retire because there's jobs down it.
As mentioned in the report, this is an ongoing activity that we have to be on top of. And just lastly, a point of clarity, thanks to your worship, the Mayor. I'd like to flag that in 4.2, the date of June 25 is clearly wrong. And the committee actually endorsed the strategic risks captured in the associated table through a workshop back in September 23, which is when you requested that we do a deep dive into each of those strategic risks. So my apologies for that confusion. Other than that, not so short introduction to the report. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you both. Questions from colleagues? So what I couldn't see, and you've mentioned this some in your verbal introduction, I'm just trying to work out how we're going to measure effectiveness. I don't think it's mentioned in the report. And from my perspective, this is a really important issue in respect of which the council is making some big efforts, but we all want to make sure that the efforts we're making are actually effective. So can you talk to me a little bit about how often we're measuring the effectiveness of this? Because it's the old story, if we're doing some things that aren't making progress, we should stop doing those and start doing something else. So how are we measuring this?
Thank you for that question, and it's a good question. My intention is that with this particular risk, that now that we have a strengthened framework with which to assess our actions, that we take a look annually at what we've done against the mitigated actions, what activities that we've taken place, so similar to those last two columns in the appendix, and just reassess that on an annual basis. Because as you mentioned before, and you're right, this is ongoing work. This isn't, thanks Cassidy, you've done your job, you're out. This is something that collectively, and with a relatively new elected member group next year, that will be requiring ongoing work.
Okay, so if I love trends, I love measuring impact as opposed to activity even more. So I'm not interested in what you've done so much as what you've achieved. So I would love for you folks to come back next year when we do our deep dive again. And I would encourage you to say, here's all the things we've done. This is how we've measured effectiveness. We've decided that some of these things actually weren't as effective as we thought they would be. So we're going to change. There are some things that we've done that weren't effective. So we're going to stop doing those. And we've thought of a bunch of other things that we could do, which we think will be more effective, and we'll measure that again over the next year. What I wouldn't like to see, because it would be unrealistic, is for us to simply say, and I'd urge you not to, we're locked into these mitigations. So come hell or high water, we just have to keep going. My advice to you would be, it's not working, kill it, try something else. This is very important because it's a strategic risk, and therefore it deserves constant focus on what's working, what's not, and you shouldn't be at all afraid to come here and say, this didn't work as well as we hoped. We're going to try something different. I'll applaud that. I will be suspicious if we say everything's working fine, nothing to see here, because that's not life. I could leave you with that thought.
Thank you for that direction.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else that they want to add? Okay. Please don't be afraid to fail. I recognise it's a harsh environment, but certainly I hope in this committee we acknowledge it's tough, but we need to give you the time and space to try something. No, it's not working. Try and do something different because it's too important not to get right. Okay, so on that basis, I will move, and Councillor Prendergast will second that we adopt the revised risk profile and note the mitigation activities. And thank you very much for your presentation and your work. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have got to the end. Are we okay for lunch? Brilliant. So I will draw the meeting to a close. Thank you all. Let's have a bite to eat, and then we will get on with our 2 workshops that are proposed. Thank you very much.